Lately, we've had some aces who aren't exactly acing, and that includes a couple of this year's breakout performers who have gotten rocked. That naturally leads to the question, are you panicked? First off is a guy who is, I guess, the ace of that Mariners staff, which is a really good staff, and he was supposed to be an ace from fantasy teams, but lately June has not been kind to him or to you if you've had him. That's Luis Castillo of the Mariners. On Sunday, gave up 3 earned runs over 5 innings. Not too rough, but this is just the latest in a string of not so great starts. He had previously given up 4 earned runs the last start and 5 earned runs in the start before that. Altogether, that means he's given up 19 runs over his last 26 innings, and that ERA continues to climb. Now, it's not bad. It's still under 4 for the season, 3.87 to be exact. The whip is still fine at 1.21, but as the year goes on, you gotta wonder, these pitchers wear down, something happening here that we should be concerned about. Well, in Castillo's case, I don't think so. This is one of those pitchers that has been a workhorse for several years now. The Mariners are one of those teams that like to continue to roll their starters out. They've been lucky, been mostly healthy, and Castillo is probably going to wind up being one of the league leaders in innings pitched again. He's already got 18 starts under his belt. Now, I know recently it hasn't been that great, but there's nothing you can point to say that you should really be concerned here. It doesn't feel good to see that ERA climb up, but it isn't that bad. This is probably just a mid-season swoon for whatever reason. He's still getting you strikeouts. He's still on a good team. He's still out there every 5th day. So right now, I'm setting the panic meter here at an even 5. If you've got Castillo, I just keep rolling him out there. Just hope that he figures things out and gets better. I think he will. Now, I definitely cannot say the same for Bobby Miller for the Dodgers. You know, Bobby Miller, exciting young pitcher, somebody who's drafted really high in the preseason. He's been gone for a while, just came off the IL, just when everyone was excited to see him out there. Well, you're kind of wishing that you hadn't. In his 2 starts since coming back, gave up 5 earned runs in 6 1/3 inning, and then gave up 3 earned runs, but in only 2 innings. And unlike Castillo, he's not even getting you strikeouts. Across those last 2 starts, a total of 3 Ks. Now, the obvious question here is he right? Is this just somebody who shouldn't have come back? Is he not ready to be pitching in the majors yet? Does he need more time to rehab? Is there something physical going on here? Well, obviously, these teams know what they're doing. At this point, this is not something that I think we really need to be concerned about, because if he wasn't ready physically, they would not have activated him. You know, teams are very careful, especially with the young starters these days. And it's not like he's exited with pain or anything like that. There's one big issue here with Bobby Miller, and he's just not throwing strikes. He really is just not hitting the strike zone. You look at the heat map here, a lot of his pitches are down in the zone and not in the strike zone. He's kind of all over the place. That's why he's not getting strikeouts, but also he's just not able to continue deep into games because he's making himself work harder than he needs to. You know, the walks aren't insanely high, but considering how few innings he's pitched these last 2 starts, yeah, he's walking guys, not striking them out. He's not giving up a ton of hits, but again, he's just laboring. This guy needs more time to really get into a groove. Look, Bobby Miller should be fine, but you got to also worry that the Dodgers are a team that cannot give a very long leash to guys like this, because as talented as Bobby Miller is, if he's a liability out there, they might send him back down. They might keep him on the bench. Who knows? And this is also a team very likely to make a move before the trade deadline to get some help. Walker Buehler hurt again. Clayton Kershaw, who knows? Now Bobby Miller, ineffective. I mean, they can only pull so many guys from AAA. They're probably going to add another starter if they need to. That said, this might be a time for a team who needs a shot in the arm. You know, if you're in the middle to the lower part of the standings in your fantasy league, you're going to take a chance on a guy. I guess you could try to buy low here. I mean, Bobby Miller at this point might start to get dropped in some leagues if he has another bad start. But I can't say I'm fully sold on the fact that he is going to be a fantasy asset the rest of the season. I think the panic meter here is at a 9. Now, another historic franchise, New York Yankees, have had a guy who's been surprisingly one of the best pitchers in the AL, and that's Luis Gil, until these last 2 starts. Heading into June 20th, before he was set to face the Baltimore Orioles, Luis Gil had a 2.03 ERA and a 0.98 whip. Again, he had become one of the best starters in the game, striking out a ton of batters. His last 2 outings, getting up a total of 12 earned runs in less than 6 innings. Now, the Orioles hit him hard, and then he ran into the suddenly red-hot Mets. So you got to wonder, is this a case of just facing 2 really tough offenses, or is there some fatigue setting in? Because Gil is a guy, not just a young pitcher, but also had some injury history. He's never really gone deep into a season, throwing a ton of innings. Is this maybe just running out of gas? Well, if you ask him, you ask Aaron Boone, ask the Yankees franchise, they all say no. Nothing to worry about here. Just not hitting his spots. Just this is something that happens. Once, okay, fine. Twice in a row, I think we do need to start looking into it a little deeper. Now, I will say this. I've seen Luis Gil dropped in a couple of leagues. I think that's way too premature and also a little reactionary. I get he doesn't have the track record, but at the same time, we're looking at just 2 starts, whereas he had been going for weeks and weeks, dominating hitters. So I'm going to buy more into what I've seen so far than just what I saw in the past 10 days. With Luis Gil, I'm putting the panic meter at about a 7 because I can't say I'm not concerned by this. It's not just that he wasn't good for 2 starts. It was how hard he got hit in those 2 starts and how bad he has looked. And the same thing I said about Bob Miller applies here to Luis Gil, a very young pitcher, a team that is a contender. I mean, right now, Yankees' best record in the majors. I mean, are they really going to just keep rolling him out there if he continues to get hit hard? It wouldn't be surprising if that doesn't happen. But let's not pull the plug on Gil just yet. I'm really curious to see how he responds to this in his next start. Look, if he gets hit hard again, yeah, let's go to full-fledged panic mode. But until then, let's wait and see. Now in the NL, the biggest breakout pitcher of the season, not a young pitcher, but Ranger Suarez for the Phillies has basically been the best pitcher in the NL, and nobody saw that coming. Until he ran into that buzzsaw of the Miami Marlins offense on Sunday and gave up 6 earned runs and 9 hits. Look, anytime a pitcher gets hit hard by the Marlins, you've got to be concerned. And now people will start to wonder, is Suarez going to slow down? Is he somebody who has been outperforming, overachieving? Let's just stop all this. Even bad teams like the Marlins will some days have good days on offense. And this is not the first time a really good pitcher has gotten hit hard by Miami unexpectedly. This is a Sunday afternoon. Look, these things happen. Right before this game, Suarez's previous 3 starts had gone at least 6 innings each time, and he had not given up more than 2 earned runs. He has been solid. There are no signs of concern here. This is just a bad start. Look, I debated not even talking about this, but I know some people will ask because when you have a very bad performance against a very bad team, it's going to make you wonder. And again, this isn't a guy like an Aaron Nola. This is Ranger Suarez. This is not somebody who's been a fantasy stud, but this is also a veteran pitcher. All those things we talked about previously with Gale and Miller don't necessarily apply. The Phillies are also one of the better teams in the National League, but they're going to continue to roll Suarez out there as long as he's good to go. So I can't just put it at a 0. Let's say the panic meter, based on this one bad start from Ranger Suarez, is a 2. And how about a hitter? Well, if there's someone who's starting to really be worrisome, disappointing, Marcus Semien of the Rangers. Batting average now sitting in the 230s. The power has mostly been there. He's got 11 home runs, 40-something RBIs. So that's decent, but the steals aren't there either. So with a low batting average, a slump, starting to form here, should we be concerned? Is he now starting to age not so gracefully? Well, this is kind of a tricky one. I will say I'm not too concerned about the batting average because his expected batting average is much higher at 266. And also with Semien, that's not really what you expect. Not a guy who's ever hit near 300, nor should you have thought he would. So I think that will come around, not too worried. His plate discipline is still excellent, only a 13% strikeout rate. He still makes contact. So in that sense, I think the average will pick up to where it should be. I also understand this Rangers offense. Look, Corey Seager has been disappointing. He's kind of in and out, always has something nagging, hasn't quite put it together. Josh Young is still not coming back. When will that happen? Evan Carter, White Langford, that duo, did not come through. Carter's still in the IL. Langford now finally to start to wake up. But still, overall, this Rangers offense has been disappointing. And I think it'll get better. I think Semien, by the time the year is over, will be pretty much close to his projections, except the one thing I'm worried about is the lack of steals. Only 3 stolen bases on the year. Now, on the surface, it really shouldn't be concerning because his sprint speed is just the same. He has not lost a step, literally. And, as far as Texas, well, they don't really run that much. You look, and it's 23rd in stolen base attempts per game. That's not good, but that's really not worse than last year. They're just not a team that runs a lot. Last year, Semien had 14 stolen bases. We should have expected him to get around that. I don't know if he'll get there, but it'll be close. Again, I do think that we see Semien as a guy who's this power, speed threat, will score a ton of runs in Texas. I think the 14 steals from a year ago, based on what we should expect this year, that is his ceiling. Only once has he stolen over 20 bases in the season. That was 2022. Otherwise, he's just barely scraping by in double digits. He might get there this season, but again, I can't say I'm worried about it because, you know what, it's not that far off from what we should have expected. Again, as far as Semien is concerned, not too panicked here. Let's say about a 3 because he's not going to miss the mark, at least not too much, from his projections. Believe it or not, the second half of the season isn't too far off, and that's where things really start to pick up for fantasy as you make a push for the pennant in your fantasy leagues. Keep it locked here to Fantasy Endgame all season long. Check out our latest videos.